Hi everyone! Hi everyone, welcome to this LinkedIn Live. That is the second episode, and today I am with Dean. And Dean has been working a lot on digital projects, and you can see his book in the background, Slaying the Digital Beast. Dean, could you share a bit more background about you, please?
Sure, I've been working in the digital transformation space for way over 30 years now, working with mid to large organizations typically and helping them implement major system transformations and business process transformations.
Hmm, okay. So I'm curious, I like to ask questions about performance, and let's start with individual performance. What's your thoughts on individual performance? How would you define this concept?
So the sort of easy answer there is it's the sum of the person's output in their daily job, but
Mm,
it's a lot more than that. Uh, I was introduced to team leadership by my 20s, and in fact by the time I was 20, and I was also introduced to the concept of the Belbin model, where you see 9 different types of role within the team,
mhm,
and I quickly sort of learned that different people have different strengths in different areas, and that none of them are better than any of the others. But
mm,
what you actually need is a combination of all of those together to make
mm,
an effective team. So individual performance can be different for different people, and that also then goes into these sort of OKR, these sort of objectives and key results. Setting those, you've got to look at the type of person and build on their strengths, and help support any sort of weaker areas, help them with personal development. So
mm,
the individual performance, I think, if you don't tailor your guidance and mentorship with
mhm.
individuals, then you're not necessarily going to get the maximum. You can't treat everybody as a one size fits all.
Mm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, I really like it that the fact we have to acknowledge that everyone is different, and that we need to start with that, and that this unicity of individuals, once leveraged to work as a team, can then tap in more collective intelligence. And so, what is your definition of team performance?
So team performance sort of obviously flows on from this the sum of the individual's performance, but I don't like to just think of team performance in that way. I like to look for opportunities to sort of amplify
Mhm,
the sort of total output of the team by them working in collaboration with each other. So one of the things I've done for my entire career is look at the way people work, look at what makes them more effective, what inhibits
mhm,
them from doing their day job, and use those sort of different lenses to devise ways of working. And as a project manager, as a program manager, you should be
mhm,
customizing the project framework, the project approach, the project management approach that you're using,
mm,
to the individuals, the organization, and the type of project that you're doing at that point in time.
mm.
So, yeah, looking for those levers and um, using those levers at the right time in the right project, you can, the sum of the parts becomes greater than the sum of the whole, if that makes sense.
Mm. Yeah, 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 makes sense. But what does it mean when you say right time? Is there any right time for these kind of things? Like,
So if you
how do
look
you?
at
Yeah.
if you look at sort of transformation projects, technology projects,
Hmm.
they run in different phases. So at different phases of the project, you
Hmm.
need to behave in different ways and focus on different things. So
Mm,
what's right near the beginning of the project, where you're fact finding, where you're analysing, where you're gathering information to make the decisions for a design, which then
mm,
follows through into the implementation. It's different at each stage. So again, it's one size doesn't fit all. So
mm.
you need to be alive to the different stage that you're at in the piece of work that you're doing.
Okay. And so just to make sure I understand it well, so in a digital project, we have different phases and they require different things. So then you say that we need to make sure that people behaviors will be different according to the project phase.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, we're not looking for people to be wildly different in their personalities at each
Yes.
phase, but but you know, there's different sort of levels of attention to detail, for example.
Mm,
So if you're working with a business analyst near the beginning of the project, they'll be looking for these sort of gross ideas, areas of pain within the business, the
mm,
opportunities for improvements, and working at that sort of gross level. But as you start working your way through, you break down those themes into more granular, effectively requirements. What do we want to achieve with this project? What are the uh, mini steps? And you get an ever increasing level of detail as you go through.
mm,
So it's that sort of uh, looking at the journey that you're on, looking up the road to make sure you're not going to hit anything, but it's also at the right time looking down and
mm,
paying attention to that detail.
mm. And now I like what you have like in your background, guaranteed project outcomes. So I guess, I hear it a lot, especially in the tech world, where, teams, they go over budget, they are late. So can you maybe share like a real life example that you have heard of what could impact dramatically a project in terms of maybe people? Like if it's people, not the budget side of thing, but the
Mm-hmm.
people side of thing.
Sure. I mean, one observation. I specialise in project and program recovery. So
Hmm.
I've recovered. I can't remember whether I'm up to 17 or 18 um, projects now.
Okay.
Um,
You're
but
still alive with lots of hair?
yeah, I actually enjoy it. I seek out the failing
The,
projects
okay.
because they're good fun. Um, and one of the big observations from that is that projects tend not to fail because of the
Hmm.
project teams, because of the individuals. It tends to be one or two specific people
Hmm.
which cause a project failure. Now,
Okay.
the interesting thing about a project failure or project going off the rails, going over budget, going over time,
Mm.
is that almost everybody sees it coming. Yeah, so it's not a surprise,
Mm.
but one or two people don't do anything about it, and those one or two people are
Mm.
usually the project manager, who would be me,
Okay.
and my executive sponsor. So
Hmm.
between those two people, um,
Hmm.
that's where the failure tends to occur in my experience and in my observation. So it's not usually down to team performance. It's down to, for example, a team has been given an unrealistic amount of work to do in an
Mm.
unrealistically short period of time.
By a team
With
of two people.
no, the rest of the team. So those two. Sorry, by those two people. Yes, by those two people.
Yes.
Is that? Sorry, I misheard you.
I mean, as a team, like, so it seems like you say, oh, and I'm just making, a joke
Yeah,
and
sure,
saying,
sure.
okay,
So
because
there might
there are
that
two, so those two people can be as a team, and this team is dysfunctional, and it's
exactly.
impacting the other team. So what does
Yeah.
it really mean? Are we working as a team, or do we have in fact two teams?
So there's things that are going on when projects go wrong,
Mm.
and quite often the executive has made a commitment uh, at board level to achieve an outcome by a date, and
Yes.
quite often their bonus is predicated on that achieving that date. So failure is not an option, delay is not an option.
Mm.
So quite often the sponsor of the project can
Hmm.
drive um, the project to try to achieve unrealistic aims. Now, for me, it's down to the project manager, the program manager,
Hmm.
to work with the sponsor to educate the sponsor and to come up with a better plan which will deliver the success or large portions of the success that the sponsor needs,
Mm.
um, whilst being realistic. Because the worst thing is I describe it as um, a team by consensus running face first into a brick wall, and going, oh, we've hit a brick wall. But they knew 3 months before or 2 months before that they were going to run face
Mm.
first into the brick wall. And then when they pick themselves up from running
Mm.
face first into the brick wall, they say, right, let's make another plan. And they
Mm.
make another plan, and they turn and they run face first at another wall, and they miss that date as well.
Mm.
So um, I'm often the second, third, fourth, or even fifth. I've been the fifth project manager to
Mm.
walk through the door, and all the previous project managers have done the same, you know, into the brick wall. So, it's that failure by consent.
Yeah. And how can it be overcome? Do people have blind spots? Do people go through a lot of biases like they have, and
So
like
yeah, there's a few scenarios. There's ignorance, right? So
you don't know what you don't know?
yeah, so project managers don't know what they don't know. So
Hmm.
a number of project managers that I've met, they're good at projects up to a certain size
Hmm.
in a certain sector, with a certain set of parameters. But when it gets outside that, they don't know what they don't know exactly. So you beat me to that one. Um, and so then failure happens because it's out of their bounds, and they don't have the capabilities to realize that they're out of bounds and that they need to, you know, work out how to make this right.
Mm.
Or they're fearful and they want to pretend it's all okay, and they push the pressure back on the team to say, you've got to do
Mm.
this, you've got to do this, you've got to do this, and then it
Yeah,
fails.
got it.
So
And it made
so
me think, sorry, of this cycle. Do you know it? Like the conscious, incompetent, incompetent, unconscious, and then you go
yeah,
around. And so, but as well, I guess, in project management, you always have uncertainties, you always have
absolutely.
risks.
I
And
I I
yeah.
expect uncertainty every time. I expect
Mm.
change every time. So I
Mhm.
expect the goalposts to move,
Mm.
and there's always risks, and it's about how you manage those risks. Now, I talk wrong way. I talk about achieving guaranteed project outcomes. Now, if
Mhm.
depending on whose statistics you believe, anywhere up to 70% of all technology projects will fail to meet some or even all of their objectives because the project's been cancelled, um,
Mm.
to some degree. Now, that's a frightful state of affairs. If you imagine we've been doing technology projects for easily 60 years now, we should get
Mm.
every single project right. And I
Good
believe that
point.
we can get every single project right. And
Mm.
I've got a 100% track record of getting it right. Now, that doesn't mean to say that costs don't increase along the way. That doesn't
Mm.
mean to say that projects don't change the direction along the way. But what
Mm.
it does mean is that at every point, um, we're being realistic about where we're at, and we're being realistic about what that means for the project, what it means for the timeline, what it means for the budget, what it means for the people. And we don't get
Mm.
ourselves into situations where individuals and teams are put
Mm.
under unreasonable pressure and stress and have to do 16-hour days because
Mm.
of some idiot who wants to drive them into the ground, because
Yeah.
that's just not on.
And so, what can we do about that? About this synergy between one person and the rest of the team?
So a lot of it goes back to when a customer engages a supplier,
Mm.
you've got the vendor selection. So in that process, are they selecting the right vendor? Have they got the capabilities to select the right vendor? What is the right vendor? A a a a vendor, a supplier, may have all the right experience, or may have had all the right experience for you as a customer three
Mm.
years ago, but a competitive consultancy
Mm-hmm.
or two or three or five, has poached all of their good people. So now
Mm.
those good people who you're depending on to deliver the results are working somewhere else, and now you don't have the same capability in that supplier. But trading off the references, trading off the apparent experience, you can still
Mm.
fall foul because all of a sudden you don't have the depth of the experience within that consultancy anymore. So it's really hard.
Yes, I totally understand that. So it's like
So
the
so
capital
so
of the brain of the, yeah, the intelligence from the team, and even if the business name remain the same, the
mm,
team behind the business name is not exactly the same.
yeah,
Mm.
and though that high experience, although it's gone to another organisation now,
Mm.
that other organisation is working in a different way, so you don't even necessarily get the full value of those resources in the other place because they've got constraints and different frameworks, different
Mm.
project approaches, and those
Yes,
project approaches may not be fit for purpose, one size fits
correct.
all again, for the way that you need to be as a customer. So again, it
Mm.
boils down to this sort of maturity, but it starts with the sale. Fine, the customer engaging the suppliers. It starts with the sale, the expectations set during that. So when I'm talking to a customer pre-sale, I'm setting expectations about changes during the project. The fact that we expect those.
Mm.
I'm ascertaining whether the timeline is the absolute be all and end all of the objectives, whether the scope is really fixed, is it flexible, and using the agile framework, you've got the opportunity to pull all these different levers to make sure you can
Mm.
still hit your objectives.
Mm.
So an example, one of the projects I've done here in Australia, I came in and I think it was 14 project streams within the program, and uh, there'd been a few failed project managers before, or the project hadn't been successful before, and I came in and there was a brick wall deadline by which you needed to go live by, again tied to an executive objective,
Mm-hmm.
and we put in place a recovery plan, and we recovered it by the required date. And but not only that, because of the agile approach we adopted, there were something like 350 business requests for change to the
Mm.
systems that were piling up because the project was
Mm.
running late, and we managed to address all 350 of those as well by the same date. So you can achieve more in less time
Mm.
if you do things the right way with the right tools, and you customize it to that specific project and the specific people that you've got. That particular project, there was one business analyst on it, and I
Mm-hmm.
determined that I needed six.
Mm-hmm.
So I was able to get budget to hire another two, but then I was given three secondees
Mm.
who had never done business analysis before.
Yes.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
so you work with the materials you've got. They're good, bright people, and
Mm.
I coached them in the broad tools that they needed to use, and they did a fantastic job, and they were a huge part of the success of the project.
Mm. And I was wondering as well, when you work on project, are you using lots of feedback loops? So, when you talk about outcomes, so before you have the inputs, then you have the process, and the outcome. But then, do you have like some feedback loop? How do you reassess whether the process that is in place is sustainable for the output that you are looking for?
Sure, a lot of that boils down to the tools that you use. I use various different agile enabling tools. So basically, you have full transparency on all the work that needs to be done, the time
Mm-hmm.
frame that each piece of work needs to be done by, and you break it down into chunks, into sprints, and so it's just a fixed time box. And the sprint might be 1 week to 4 weeks, and you set what you believe are reasonable objectives to achieve in that sprint, and there will be changes as you go along, and you might move things around, you might add more in, you might have to take a few things out,
Mm-hmm.
but you by using the right tools, things like Kanban boards, Scrum boards, having daily stand-ups where all the team members, in a sort of 15-20 minute period,
Mm.
say, this is what I worked on yesterday, this is what I worked on today, what I'm going to work on today, and these are the blockers to me achieving what I need to achieve today. So then you
Mm.
pair people up and say, right, you go talk to that person, you go talk to that person, remove those blockers. So you've got
Mm.
this sort of daily, hourly focus, and you've got this
Mm.
transparency. So by using the right tools, so
Mm.
you see when things start to go awry, because it all bubbles up onto a dashboard within the tool. So again, it's about knowing what key metrics you need to be focusing on to
Mm.
make sure that you're delivering the quality, that you're delivering to the time, and that you're
Mm.
meeting the objectives.
And what about when, because I am hearing that a lot from leaders I'm working with, and they say that sometimes, they want to make sure that they make decisions as a team
Mm-hmm.
and that they want to make collegial decision. What do you think about that? It is what yeah what's your thoughts on that collegial decision in in a digital project? How does it work? Is it
So
effective?
there's two sides to it. One is absolutely it's effective when used in the right way.
Hmm.
Um, so I absolutely believe in an empowered team. So as a for
Hmm.
example, if I've got a functional consultant or business analyst working with a subject matter expert from the business on the client,
Hmm.
um, I would, in 90%, 95% of situations, I would expect that those two people, and that there might be a pool of subject matter experts that form that, but ultimately there's one lead SME, one lead subject matter expert. I would expect that 95% of the micro decisions that
Hmm.
need to be made are made by those people in real time. Now,
Hmm.
during a project, there could be 10,000, 100,000, 500,000, whatever the number is, of
Hmm.
micro decisions that get you to a successful outcome, or a number of successful outcomes. Um, the people who have been brought into the project are specialists. You've got specialist consultants and you've got
Hmm.
specialist subject matter experts. So that
Yeah.
they're the best qualified if you empower them to make those decisions on the spot. Now,
Even if they are not trained in decision making.
well, you do see SMEs who struggle to make decisions,
Yeah.
but that's where you need, for example, say you've got a finance team, you might have
Hmm.
three finance SMEs, but you'll have a lead finance SME, and maybe the lead financial SME is the financial controller, or the CFO, and maybe the other SMEs are accounts payable, accounts receivable, whatever the specialism is.
Mm.
So the leadership, the from the lead SME should be the arbiter of making those decisions. Now, some decisions are higher up than that. They you have to go back to the business, to the executive, to the board. So there are business decisions which they're unable to make, and that's the sort of
Mm.
5% that I was talking about.
Yeah. Got it. But yeah, why I'm
So,
challenging you on
mhm,
this one, because when I was doing my research for my book, I had a cybersecurity expert working in Australia for a company. And everyone in the company was relying on him to make like $1 billion decision. And so he did it. He made a decision, and the company lost a lot of money. And because technology is evolving so fast, especially cybersecurity, that if people are not trained in decision making, it's a capability. It's not because you're an expert that you know everything and what to do. We all have blind spots, whether we are an expert or not. And I think as well, people working on a project, they can bring different perspectives, different viewpoints, because they have different thinking style. And we can leverage cognitive diversity as well, no matter as well what the rank we are in.
mhm.
And I think that's maybe what I would like to see a bit more, in some projects in tech, because as well, how many different generations are working on a project? Usually it's like, you have so, and how many perspectives they can bring because of the life experience that they have, or how much they are attuned to technology.
Hmm. Yeah, and sometimes you gain benefit from those diversity of experiences,
Mm,
but equally it can also provide cultural blockers,
yeah,
particularly in digital transformations, because organisations that fail to change can perish completely. And
correct.
if the old guard uh, won't permit certain types of change, that they could be really accelerating the demise of their own company. So
Mm,
it's from a leader of transformation perspective, it's a huge responsibility, and you've got to have the capability to see and understand the implications and communicate with the right not confidence, that's not the word, but conviction, with the right
mm,
conviction, such that people understand and can make informed decisions,
mm,
and hopefully the right decisions.
mm,
There's also there's a point at which, as a leader of a transformation, you've got to be prepared to fall on your sword. You know, if 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 something is going to be catastrophic
mm,
for the project and its outcomes, then
mm,
for me, I could never just let it all happen. I couldn't run face first into a brick wall knowing that it was going to happen. So I would rather do everything within my power to communicate, to
mm,
explore and push that, and ultimately, um, if that meant getting into a disagreement,
mm.
which meant my position was untenable, then I'm prepared to go that far, because
Mm.
failure is not an option.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yes, but sometimes I heard, I mean, like, for example, I read, the book from Annie Duke. She's a decision-making expert. And one of her story, it was in the US. Like, the government worked on a project. They wanted to build like a train line from one city to another. And in the middle of it, they had a mountain. So are
Yeah.
we really hitting a brick here? But they were into the same cost fallacy, and no matter what, because they started the project, they invested energy, money, time, resources. They just wanted to finish it. But sometimes as well, one solution is to quit.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
And it's hard to quit. It's painful.
Yeah. But it's a great leader which knows when to retreat.
Mm,
You live to fight another day.
yes.
Um, if it's guaranteed project failure, then nobody wins.
Mm,
But almost every project that I've seen that's gone wrong, and all of the projects that I've seen that I've recovered,
mm.
it boils down to this failure by consent.
It could be a
People know.
great book title.
Yeah, I was just thinking that actually. So write that one down.
Failure by consent.
Yeah.
Yeah. Uh, and so like, do you think as well one way, and I think, it is because you say like sometimes it's only a few people that can also make this project fail. One way as well to overcome that will be to build a team around them that might not be in the project, but that can be like a board of director, like
Hmm.
of people that can challenge the assumptions, can
Abs-
challenge.
Absolutely, and that's part of a good project governance, is to
Mm,
set up the right governance framework, so that you're in a larger organisation, you'll have something called a PMO, project management office, and
mhm,
that provides an external um, set of eyes on the project to make sure it's following the processes.
Mm,
Following the process is no guarantee of success, but it's a good start.
mm,
Key is knowing when to break the process and do
mm,
something different. But making sure that the PMO has oversight, setting up a steering committee is a big
mhm,
one on any project of any investment in a project of any
mm.
reasonable size. You know, if you're spending $5,000 on something, then maybe you wouldn't do a steering committee for it. It's just
And
more
how do
cost
you
effective.
choose a steering committee? Like, how do you select? How do you choose? How do you build the
So
steering committee?
it brings in together all the interested parties across the organisation. So
Mm,
there'll be a key sponsor if you're putting in a new call centre, contact centre,
mm,
um, then the customer success director might be the sponsor because
mm,
it's their baby, it's their area.
mm.
Um,
So
it might be
already, are they too involved emotionally in this project? I mean,
possibly
challenging.
possibly, but they're the ultimate decision maker. So you do need
Yeah.
an ultimate decision maker. Then it's going to be a large expense, so the CFO is involved on the steering committee.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Quite often you'll find a managing director, a
Mm-hmm.
CEO on the steering committee. It depends on the size of the organisation and the size of the project. A $10 million
Mm-hmm.
project might be nothing to a West farmers.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I've consulted to $500 million projects
Mm-hmm.
programs. So the governance around that would be very different from a 1 million.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And on that, so what are the benefits of having people externally from the organization, like someone like you as a
Yeah.
consultant coming from an
So
external
so
perspective?
yeah,
Yeah.
the project and program managers from different suppliers would be part of that steering committee, and I've worked on projects and programs where they hire an external risk management company
Mm,
to provide totally independent outside expertise to
yeah.
look at the way the project's running, and then that's independent of the customer, and it's independent of the supplier,
Yeah.
and it's saying, look, come on, guys and girls, what you're doing is crazy. Don't do that.
Mm. And I think it's a great learning, whether you're in project mode, whatever size, or even if you're not in project, having those different teams and with those different purpose is
Mm.
definitely key in the world that we are living now, with everything that is evolving so fast, all the change, all the uncertainty, um,
Yeah,
and knowing when to quit, knowing when maybe when to redirect, rather than spending a lot of time, money, resources into a endeavor that we already know might maybe lead to failure. So
absolutely. And at the sort of gross level, you've got things like total company failure, like, the Enrons of the world, and that's where things like Sarbanes-Oxley SOX compliance came from, and there's been a big push for um, having more non-executive directors on boards. And in fact,
yes.
that's an area that I'm building my portfolio in
Mm,
is bringing to bear my 37 years of multi-industry experience
mm,
to bear in independent non-executive director roles. So
mm.
time to sort of give back some of that experience that I've gained.
Yes, to fast track success.
Mm, absolutely.
Mm, okay. And for example, if someone watching this not the webinar, sorry, live
Live.
or replay, like if they are looking for a non-executive director, you never know.
Mm-hmm.
Like what type of company, industry? How would you define where would you would should based as a non-executive director?
Yeah, so I'm keen to help organisations that are looking to reset their strategic direction. They might be looking for growth. They might be looking to enter new markets. They may have previously successful business units or businesses
Hmm.
um, that are stalling, that are losing market share, and it's really sort of working with those organisations to look at the value propositions, look at the go-to markets, look at the technology trends, and make sure that they're aligning their strategic objectives
Mm,
to market conditions and where the market's going.
mm, mm. Okay, yeah, that's pretty. Yeah, I think people can relate. So
Mm-hmm.
reach out to Dean. Oh, by the way, let me share Dean's details because we are coming to the end. Um, so let me share. So what's the best way to find you, Dean?
Uh, Call me, approach me on LinkedIn. I do get a lot of junk on LinkedIn uh,
Yeah, me too. Quite a
because
lot.
yeah. But I do try and keep on top of LinkedIn as well. So
Mm,
that's fine. But my email's there, my LinkedIn's there,
mm,
my number's there.
mm.
So
Okay.
any of
Anything
those.
else you want to add before we come to an end?
Uh, Really, again, for me, the key sort of takeaways should be that there's plenty of opportunities. If you look beyond just achieving the task, if you look at the levers, look for levers that you can pull to sort of multiply and amplify your team's performance,
Mm,
you'll get there faster. You'll get there with less investment. You'll get better outcomes. You'll get more engaged staff, and as a leader. Um, I've run consulting practices, 85 consultants, and run teams where we're responsible for 5 different CRM
mm,
products and the go to markets for those. And as a leader, you can't push forward on every single front at once. So you can use things like a technique I've developed called domain champions,
mhm,
where you engage your team to take accountability, responsibility in the different areas, and get those team members to drive forward into areas that you need to drive forward as a leader. And that gives you an opportunity. Going back to the individual performance, coming back full circle to that,
mm,
one of the biggest challenges is maintaining performance, because when somebody starts with an organisation,
mm,
they can come in and they can be a superstar and they do great work and everybody goes, hurrah, you're wonderful, here, have a
mhm.
good
Yeah.
performance rating, have a good bonus, have a good pay increase, and then the following year it goes down a bit and then it stagnates, and then all of a sudden the person's unhappy because they're still pushing in the hard yards that they've done all along, but they're
Mm,
getting diminishing rewards. And
mm,
the problem is that once you do a good job,
mm,
the what can happen is that the expectation is that you will always do that outstanding job that you did in that first year,
mm,
and now that's the normal. So how do you improve on fantastic and outstanding? It's really difficult.
mm,
So by using this sort of concept of having a domain champion for different areas that you want to push forward as a leader,
mm,
you can have people step up to take some responsibility and demonstrate that they're committed to growing your business, to pushing your business forward, to keeping across emerging technologies, whatever it is. Um, but give them something extra to go at, which is outside their day job. And I've seen, some people don't do much with it, and that's fine.
mm.
Other people take something, run with it, and achieve fantastic results, which I couldn't have done because I didn't have time to invest in it like they've done. If that makes sense.
Yeah, make total sense. And yeah, I could go on and go on, but yeah, that's definitely I've seen it. I've coached people that share this type of journey as well. So um, it's happening again and again. Yes.
Absolutely.
So thank you, Dean. Thank you for being with us today, and looking forward to hear where life is bringing you in terms of non-executive director. Keen
Hmm.
to hear that, and wishing you all the best. Bye for
You
now.
too. Thanks, Lisa. Bye.